Delay and reverb as a combo is a tale as old as time. Two effects that most players actually see as essential for their sound, and two effects that have become staples, almost utility pedals on people's pedal boards. You very rarely see a pedal board these days without a delay and a reverb on there. So every once in a while it makes sense to have both in one pedal, almost like your amp's best mate. And that's exactly what this new release from Formula B Pedals is. The Edge Echo Verb combines a spring-style reverb with a vintage Vincent Echorec inspired delay. And I love that they've gone for that style of delay. Instead of just an analog or a digital delay, they've gone for something modelled after that legendary Echorec unit, the unit that Pink Floyd made really famous. The decision to go for the Echorec style delay in this pedal is just gorgeous. It's not a tape delay and it's not strictly digital or analog either. It's completely its own thing. The repeats feel really organic. Oh, I hate using these sorts of words, but they feel really organic, and they degrade in such a gorgeous way that, like I said, is neither analog, neither tape. It's its own thing. One thing I do like about this pedal as well is there's no gimmicks. There's no hidden menus, there's no secret modes. It's all on the face of the pedal, and we only have three simple controls for the delay. We have mix, feedback, and time, but we also do have a really useful tap tempo too. Some people are always going to want more features, more modes, but I'm glad that Formula B kept it simple with this one, because I think adding loads more features would have actually taken away from the usefulness of this pedal and the vibe of this pedal. Sometimes simple is just better, and the core tone is so well crafted with care and attention here that it doesn't need all those extra settings. Even though I've never played an Echorec style delay before, I think it nails those tones. It feels really great, and I'm sure even David G would feel right at home playing this pedal. The thing with the Echorec repeats is that they can still be really present in the mix, but don't ever get in the way of your playing either. That's why it's great for lead playing, but I've also enjoyed some of the more subtle slapback delays in here. Yeah, so let's hear some of those delay tones on their own, and then we'll come back and talk about the reverb side of this pedal. If you're enjoying this video so far and you're liking the tones from the Formula B Edge Echo Verb, please go down, drop a like, maybe even subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out continuing to make these videos. So the reverb side of this pedal is the perfect companion. It does play a little bit more of a supporting role to the Echo, but nevertheless, it is a fabulous sounding spring-style reverb. Again, that theme of simplicity carries over. We have simple level and decay controls, and then you engage it simply with this toggle switch. In fact, it stays on even when you disengage the Echo, meaning that you could have an always-on amp-like spring reverb if you wanted it to. And you know what? That's all this reverb needs, because it's so well-crafted and well-tuned that the sound is just there instantaneously. The trails are warm and splashy, just like the spring reverb from an old vintage Fender amp. And when you start to combine the two sides and really crank some of these settings, you know, cranking the decay on the reverb and the feedback on the Echo, you almost get some sounds where it sounds like the reflections of the reverb and the repeats of the delay are almost bouncing off each other, and you get some really gorgeous, warm, splashy ambience. Okay, we'll check out the reverb on its own first, then we'll combine it with some Echo, and maybe even towards the end we'll throw in a drive pedal as well, and we'll see how we can get some nice lead tones. For me, I would say that the simplicity of this pedal is actually one of its greatest strengths, meaning that it will fit on pretty much anyone's pedal board and be super useful, almost like a utility pedal for your amp's new best friend. You could even sit it on top of your amp behind you and put it in the amp's effects loop if you wanted. Some of you may have noticed already, but there's 4 ins and outs on the top of the pedal. These are just ins and outs for the 2 different sides, so you can use a loop switcher, you could place effects in between the delay and reverb, or get more creative with different routing options. The whole thing is built really nicely out of Italy, just like those vintage Vincent Echorecs, and it's just a delay and reverb that makes a whole lot of sense. It's simple, but more importantly, it sounds beautiful at its core. Inspiring, and it's the sound of so many famous records.